mean, because character development can mean like I think two different things. There's the character's own understanding of themselves as the time progresses within the context of the film, and there's the audience's understanding of the character, going from like how I understand the character in the script versus what the actor brings to the character. And that's also very eye-opening to let go a little bit of that control, because that's exactly what it is. Because obviously film is so collaborative, every time you let another person in, you're letting go a little bit of the pure vision that you have.
Hi, I'm Yaku.
And I'm Mark.
And we're in the same room! We'll see how long this lasts this time. Welcome back to Department Spotlight. It's the show where we speak to our friends and colleagues in the film industry about their experiences.
In this video, we're speaking to Evan Wigdorowitz. He's a writer and director friend of mine and just a personal friend of mine that I've known for years and years and years. We met each other in high school. It's a whole cute thing. And we go into a lovely conversation about his burgeoning, blossoming career. And in this part 2, we're speaking about Evan's process. He's thinking around writing and directing and working with actors, etc. And if you haven't watched part 1 on Evan's path, then you should go do that. But anyway, let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Evan Wigdorowitz. I'm a writer and director and researcher from Joburg, and I'm currently living in Cape Town and working sometimes, if I'm lucky.
Okay, so for part 2, we thought we'd get into the process. We touched a bit upon it in part 1, sort of where things started originating, but we really wanted to sort of get into the nitty-gritty of your specific process. So we thought we'd start off with, what is your approach to a screenplay? For example, where does that initial idea come from? We know you touched upon it, but maybe you can just like sort of elaborate further.
To writing specifically, I think there's for me there's the big idea that happens first, which is often the subject of the screenplay, and then I have a sort of litmus test that's like, I'm very interested in the subject, and I think there's the potential to get a film out of the subject, a film that I would, or a story or whatever, that I would be willing and energized to spend years of my life on. That's a huge commitment. And then once you have the idea of the subject, then I let it linger for a little bit. So that's like the litmus test of letting it, if it sticks, if it stays around, if it starts to become the filter for other ideas. So I'm watching a film or reading something or listening to an audiobook or watching an interview or whatever. And then that main idea starts becoming the filter and catching ideas from external sources. And then obviously doing more active research. So the screenplay that I've written it's a historical drama and the character and the time that it takes place is, I didn't live during that time, and I don't share a lot of life experience with the character, which means that it's my responsibility to research thoroughly for a script like that. So then the ideas start to like dance with the research. You start reading things that are specific to the subject, and ideas grow around there. And then once I've got a whole book of ideas, so I write a lot of physical notes, and then I collate the notes in specific notebooks. So I have like a notebook that's dedicated only to one project. Once the book I feel is full enough, then I start constructing the like narrative line yeah, and see how the ideas work against each other, work with each other. So I think it's a bit of a deconstruct, like a bit of a reversey way of working, because I think a lot of people start with, okay, here's the hero's journey, step 1, step 2, step 3, whereas I don't personally, I don't have anything against a more rigid structure, but it's not the way that my brain works. So, and it's not subjectively what I like. I think there's something more interesting when you don't necessarily follow some like some version of a formula. So then it goes from ideas to structure to writing. Then you like have the skeleton, like the note, the sticky notes on the wall or whatever, and then you go from that to actually like fade in or whatever. Yeah,
that's very interesting. Yeah, that's sort of opposite to how we do it, which is very cool to even for me to like think about how does that even work, because I think, well, for me at least, and for Mark, we write together, but we sort of like have this idea, and then it's like, oh, okay, what happens in this? We've got a video on it, the 5-beat structure, and then we sort of like fill it in. But I think this approach is also really
I don't think
interesting.
I don't think it's just so much as like a filling in. It's more like a asking questions about it.
Yeah, what I mean is like, it sounds like from what you just said, Evan, you can tell me if I misunderstood you, but it sounds like you like in your research, you just like write down ideas that are like, maybe somewhere in the film this can happen, maybe somewhere in the film this can happen. And then, like you said, when it's full enough, then you're like, okay, where does it go?
I mean, it's not necessarily as rigid as that, but like, so I know there's, so the ideas start to have some relationship to each other before I structure the story. So I have some idea of what the story is, and that also starts to feed some of the ideas, but it's definitely not detailed in any way. Like yeah, it's kind of an abstract thing to explain, I guess. And that stage of the process is very like internal. It's like very like in my mind. And then like the whole the whole structuring phase is like taking the way I understand it internally and like making that external. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
If that makes sense. I don't know. If
I think it does.
Sorry for you.
No, I think it does.
Because I don't think for example, looking at the scene with the 5 beats is a sort of inorganic way of doing it. Like, I don't feel like I don't personally feel like we force anything.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like when we use our structure, it's sort of like, I don't want to say it's a shortcut, but it like helps us to figure out or to understand what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Instead of like us just, I mean, we have an idea of where we want it to go, but it's like in every scene, there's this 5 beats that we try to like make or try to bake into the scene so that it is a good scene, so that it has a reason to be there, instead of just writing a scene because it feels like there's a scene. So, what I was trying to say is like, I really like this idea of just like letting it stew in your mind, I guess is what you do. Because I mean, we did like 12 shorts or 11 shorts.
Yeah, I was about to say, your guys' output it's so high that it's kind of, it like demands a different process in a way.
Yeah. Because I'm just like imagining what it would be like to just stew an idea for a year and then getting started. When you do start to write it, right? Do you then keep referring back to your little book that you made, or do you just sort of then?
Sometimes I go back to like the thing that gave me the idea in the first place. Like I rewatch the film, or I re-look at a historical reference, or reread like an account or something.
But at that stage, it's like been stewing so long that it just sort of comes out.
Yeah, I mean, dude, sometimes I look at the notes, I'm like, I don't even remember writing this. Like, who wrote this? Like, I don't even remember where, like what, or like I read something and like I don't understand it. Like, what was I trying to say here? That happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that it also speaks to like longer form stories versus like shorter form stories. Like I'm sure you also don't even approach a short film the same way you do a feature film. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking like
Yeah.
our approaches to like our longer form stuff like Malamelo, like Alakrapis, we did like sit with stuff for a while and like
I
But
mean,
also we did
you
write the
guys are
short
still
first.
sitting with
yeah.
it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, but also like we wrote the short first.
Yeah,
Which is
true.
interesting. I don't think we've ever just written a feature as a feature
Right,
immediately.
freaking adaptation.
Yeah. So I mean, so we do sort of stew with it a little bit, but it's not like we wait for the whole feature before we like see if there is an idea. You know what I mean? We like make the
Yeah.
short
I
and then
mean,
expand.
the short that I wrote for this anthology obviously didn't go through the same process at all. It's much more of a like character study, which, and I think if you are making something in like a short amount of time, the richest source is yourself, I think. So like personal experience, and people that you know, and worlds that you understand, because then you can get like nuance very quickly. And yeah, I guess it worked for the short. That's how I approached it, rather than trying to dig a hole that was too big and then not being able to fill it in time with, I guess, research based ideas or whatever. It's much more personal in a lot of ways.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think we have a similar kind of approach with short films. Like none of our shorts is really sort of existing outside of our, like too much outside of our experience, like personal experience. I suppose that is sort of also one of like the restrictions that we
Put on
set
ourselves,
about. Yeah, when we did those.
That's true. Yeah, we were like, I mean, yeah, I guess it's also about the restrictions that you put on yourself when you like, I'm gonna write a feature. I'm not gonna put like, it's not like an assignment that has to be done in like 2 months. Then you have that sort of freedom to just let it stew. Whereas we like put restrictions on us. We need to write these. It can't be too big. Needs to be done at this time. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think I'd like to try your approach though. It sounds
Cool.
really, really fun to just get lost in your own mind.
It's a bit consuming at times.
You were talking about the short being a character study. How do you approach like your characters? Do you, again in your like stew, do you like put like these are the characters based on these sort of things that I've seen, or
I think it's definitely the thing that I struggle with the most, is character development, or character. I mean, because character development can mean like, I think, two different things. There's the character's own understanding of themselves as the time progresses within the context of the film, and there's the audience's understanding of the character. So I don't think it's necessary, and I think some people, I mean, a lot of people probably disagree, that the character has any sort of growth in a story, in a film. But what is important is that the audience understands that character more. So it's not to say that the character can't grow throughout the film or change throughout the film, but the what I think is essential is that the audience's understanding of the character shifts, or becomes richer over the course of the film. So that is something that I'm through this. The short film was a very good start. It's something that I'm just sort of, I'm like, I haven't like fine-tuned that part of my thinking. That's like something that I guess know that I need to focus on, or like the part of the process that I find important, but I know I'm not as naturally inclined to, as the structure or the world building or whatever.
Then in your experience of making this short and just sort of new sort of thinking around approaching character, how did you then translate that, and how did that change in working with the actor? And how did that like sort of shift on set? And then what are you maybe gonna like take forward into like the next project?
Sort of like moving from writing to directing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge learning curve for me during a short. I think it was the first time I worked with a proper professional actor, like a middle-aged man that's, really good at acting. And I think that I wanted someone else to play the part. Like I had an idea of someone and they weren't able to do it. So we went through the casting process. And this guy sent a tape and I wasn't super convinced. And then he had a callback and he was super good. And I think it's that exact thing of going from like how I understand the character in the script versus what the actor brings to the character. And that's also very eye-opening to let go a little bit of that control, because that's exactly what it is. Because obviously film is so collaborative, every time you let another person in, you're letting go a little bit of the pure vision that you have. And it's just about understanding that letting that actor bring what he's bringing to the character is actually enriching the film rather than taking away from the vision or whatever. The same goes for all other collaborations, I think, on set. The DOP is going to bring hopefully something that you could never bring, but makes the film better. It's relinquishing control for the right reasons.
I think another question sort of related to like working with people is, I think, a conversation that we've had before, and I've been rewatching the behind the scenes, the making of the third season of Twin Peaks, and just paying attention to the kind of like language that David Lynch uses, especially when he's speaking to actors. And I think that what's the most interesting thing about his approach is not so much what he says, but what he doesn't say to an actor. Mm-hmm. What is your approach then with how much you go into the sort of interiority of the character versus letting them like, fill it up themselves?
Yeah, and I think I've thought about this quite a lot before I ever directed an actor. I mean, I did like stage plays and stuff in high school. And then I didn't think about it at all. I can't even remember how I directed those plays, but working with like a professional actor who's clearly thought about the character, thought about the script, and is portraying the character in a way that's interesting, bringing something to the character. I think that the more you say, the often I think the more you distract them from that process. So and what you say holds a lot of weight, I think, as a director for the actor. So I only really try and say something or direct the actor in a way that's got to do with my understanding of where this performance falls in the film. So if I understand, if this actor is giving me a great performance, but I understand that it's only the beginning of the film and we don't need to be like on 10 just yet, then we bring it down. But other than that, it's not, I mean, depending on, some actors you have to talk to a lot, but those are, I mean, from this short, the actors that I had to talk to the most were the ones that were like struggling to give me good takes. Okay. But the actors that were good were giving me a whole variation of takes. So you don't really have to direct too much in a way. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question. Maybe
that's sort of in line. I was listening to a podcast, it wasn't a podcast, it was a discussion from last year's DGA nominated directors. And obviously it was Taika Waititi and Martin Scorsese, and a lot of them, especially Tarantino, was talking about when you have like good actors, you don't have to like force them to give a good performance, which I think is a really interesting or is a really good way to think about directing as well. Like if you, like you were saying, if you speak too much, you're distracting, and like you might end up, if it's a good actor, you might end up changing sort of or taking away some of the nuance that they are bringing. So it's cool. It's really cool. Like you're doing some of the things to some of the big guys. So good job.
No. I mean, literally the only reason. Obviously, like I'd watch a lot of directors talking. Obviously Paul Thomas Anderson talking about working with the best actor. Philip Seymour Hoffman, William H. Macy. These guys that are like Julianne Moore. These people that are so brilliant at acting that they're like transcend like whatever you can write down. They like make amazing. And I mean, the way he talks about it as well, it's just like he doesn't know A, how they do it, and B, like what else could he say to them? And sometimes, I mean, if you get a good actor, I think that's very rare, first of all. And then second of all, you don't want to, why do you want to break that? Why do you want to,
Yeah, you're not there to overpower someone else's job. You're there to just
direct.
Yeah, guide. So moving into sort of after you're like on set, you've directed this thing, going into post-production, how involved are you in post as a director?
Do you mean in general or for this short?
You can speak, how it's you.
So again, my experience is relatively limited as a director. In terms of music videos, I actually in general, even though I have very limited experience, I like to be very involved in the edit. I mean, when I edit with Mark, we literally sit from frame 1 until final cut together, going through the edit. So important to have good snacks. That is essential.
It's the most important part, edit. Some would say.
Some would say. In terms of this short that I've done for the anthology, I've had to let go a little bit. Not working with Mark. That's been weird. That's been, it's been another learning curve, I think, to work with a new editor, because it's such a position of trust and sensibility and scope of reference. The editor is really a conversation for me. It's like a conversation between me and the editor. The editing is a technical job, but that's only step 1. I think understanding the content, understanding why you're making cuts, understanding the story and the characters as an editor is way more important than the technical stuff. So I like to be very involved. For this most recent project, I've been relatively involved. I've seen cuts that I gave notes on, and most of the time I needed to have a session with the editor. I need to like sit with them for like a couple of hours in person and go through it in detail. But it's been interesting. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So you're like a very hands-on sort of in when you're directing. You're like, I wanna through this other person get my fingers in the meat that is the footage. Yeah. And then when you go to like sound, are you as involved in the post-production sound process, or?
Again, it's like I have a very big opinion, but my like knowledge, like doing like I have, I think, quite a good knowledge of editing and the editing process and what you can do and what you should do with the edit and what the edit can do for a film. And then when it comes to sound, I have an idea for music, I have an idea of what I want, and I can pull up some references, but I don't think I have the vocabulary to say this is what I want. But I can hear something that's written for the film and then say this is working because of X, Y, and Z, but this isn't working because of ABC. That's sort of how I work on that front.
Yeah, I have a very similar struggle. It's with music. I mean, I know how to play some music, but talking to a composer or whatever is it's quite like a abstract concept, because it's not like you can just...
It's so abstract, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you can say, go 2 frames later, it's like...
Yeah. I mean, I love music, and I love music in film and what music does for a film, but it's... And I have opinions on it, but I can't shape it at all. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I can't make it, yeah. I can't shape it, I don't know, yeah.
Thinking about my own sort of conversations with a composer and working with Alex on like multiple projects is that I didn't really approach each project the same way when talking about music. You can watch that in our what's that?
A vlog.
Our
26-minute music
26
vlog.
music vlog that
It's
not
way
many
too
people
long.
watched, but we thought was really good. But anyway, yeah, I found that first of all, I have like next to zero knowledge of like musical theory knowledge. I think Yaku has definitely a lot more, but I also found that how I described things or sort of what I wanted or what I didn't want definitely shifted from each short. One was like just like a lot of references and just like a few like keywords, and left him to sort of like, there was like a lot of room for like interpretation versus another one was like the only thing I gave like a few musical sort of references that I found, but then it was like I just explained the interiority of one character, and that was what he scored like throughout the film. So what do you find that your approach changes from project to project in terms of, and also when you're speaking about working with like a different editor versus working with other editor versus working with me or someone else? This is the longest question in the world, but like how does the approach change when working with different person? I suppose it doesn't even have to be in post, like working with one DOP versus another DOP, you're speaking about working with how one actor works versus another actor works. Like,
yeah, I think sometimes you have time to figure it out, because it's like getting to know someone, so you have to spend time with them in order to understand the best way to communicate clearly. And sometimes you have a lot of time to do that, and sometimes you have half a day with an actor that you met like the day before, whatever. But I think in an ideal situation, I would like time to get a sense of the person and their sensibility. I mean, with DOPs and composers, you can get a sense of them through their work. So, you can obviously watch a DOP's reel and sense their ability. You can like know what you can ask of them. But it's just about time. I mean, every project, every music video and the short, I've worked with a different DOP, and each of them has had a distinct language. Like I have to like change the way I ask for things, or don't ask for things, or let things happen. Yeah, it's like getting to know someone in a way. And the longer you have, the better your communication. Yeah, or maybe sometimes you understand that you don't actually have to say much at all. You don't have to over explain something, because you tune into like each other's sensibility.
I think that's why directors work with the same crew
Over and
members
over,
like over and over, because there's just that shorthand that's already there. So just to finish off, like the end of part one, we always like to end off on some sort of inspiring words. So maybe the inspiring words can then be around the
Just working
creation
on-
of
yeah.
an idea, or sort of the development of something. What is Evan's top tips for developing an effective film?
I mean, that's a hard question to answer, because I'm like only at the beginning of that part of my career where I'm actually having output from the thinking and the writing. So I would say the main thing is, if the idea, the first idea, the subject, the story, the film, or the script sticks with you, and you like no matter what. So like if that thing like latches onto you, then you know that you have the capacity to give it the energy that it needs to make it good or impactful, or as good as you can make it. So if you have an idea for a subject, or even if it's like a plot line or something, and that idea sticks with you, even when you're doing something else, even when you're engaging on a different project, and that idea is still lingering, that's a good sign. I think that you'll have the energy that it takes to see it to completion and make it good. Because I think a film, every single film is so dense in person hours. Like an hour and a half or 2 hours on the screen is tens of thousands of hours of human beings' energy that's gone into that. So if you know that, and you know that this thought or idea is worth contributing that energy to, then you're probably onto a good thing.
Cool. Very good advice.
That's good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Evan. This was such a cool conversation, both parts. If you haven't seen part 1, go, make sure you watch it. And then thanks, man. And good luck with the post-production process. Good luck with the festivals. I'm sure it's going to just dominate all over next year or this year. I don't know when you're planning on releasing or submitting, but awesome, dude. Thank you so much for sharing. And
a pleasure, guys.
We'll catch you on the next one.
so much, brother.
Pleasure. Hopefully see you in person soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
Cheers, man.
Bye. And that was it for part 2 of a conversation with Evan, talking all about his process, how he writes, how he works with crew members. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed it.
And if you did enjoy it, then make sure to leave this video a like. Just hit the like, just click it. Click it. Click the... Please, we're doing this whole thing for you. Just come on, it really helps us out. And if you have any comments or questions for us, then leave them down in the little comment box below. We try and respond to all of them.
And did you know that there's also a full audio version of this podcast available everywhere you listen to podcasts? So if you head on over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else and check it out. But until next time, go out there, stay safe, and make your movie.